So we'll call the meeting to order. This is the agenda. You should have received the minutes from the last meeting. Did y'all get a chance to take a look at those?
I did. I got them from you and I read them. Yep.
Okay. Any changes, or can we say that they're approved as sent?
I wasn't there, but I didn't see anything that I thought should be changed.
Jane did comment and she thought it was okay. George, you have any changes?
No, I'm fine.
All right, then they'll stand approved as sent. And we're recording this meeting, so nobody needs to keep any minutes. We'll be able to transcribe them from the recording. Any issues with the website? If not,
No.
we'll move on. The directory issues have to do with something that George had brought up at the last meeting, and that was the fact that we discovered, let me see if I can pull this up. We discovered, or George discovered, that we couldn't find some people in the directory. And the issue is that if people hide their profile or they say no to the question of show profile, then they don't show up in the directory. And so I created this email/letter to go to those people with the intention of changing their profile to yes, show profile to yes. That way, they will show up in the directory. And if they would like to hide their phone numbers or email, they have, there's a procedure for doing that. They have to go into their profile and they have to take a look at what's called the directory preferences. And then they can go to any part of that profile and choose to hide it. George, you suggested that people could just delete their information. The problem with that, and I made a change in the email, that if they do delete their email address, then they won't receive some of the communications that we send out to all owners and renters too, really. So I sort of changed the email, the letter a little bit to indicate that at the bottom here, I have added that we recommend that the residents not hide their information so that everybody can contact you. And then furthermore, if you delete your contact information instead of hiding it, you will be unable to receive emails from the association. So I think hiding the information, which is not a difficult thing to do, is better than deleting it.
I think that most of the people that this is the problem with aren't even aware of the website or the directory, or that they chose no or anything like that. So I think it's a good idea to contact them and explain that at the very least, we need to know, or at least have a full directory who lives in this unit. And like you said, by law, we're allowed to do that. I mean, if they choose not to have their phone number or email, there's reasons for that, and they can go ahead and delete it. But I think most of the people aren't even aware of it. So I think this would be a good first step to correcting this this loophole kind of problem we have here.
I would agree that a lot of people, when they make that choice, when they first register, may not be aware of the consequences of that, and may have just done it because, oh, I don't want people to see my profile. But I think you're absolutely right, George.
So what you intend to do then is to change everybody to yes and list their information.
Right.
And if they want to delete something or hide something, they're able to do that. Like all of us. If you don't want your photo, don't put your photo on. If you want your photo, add your photo, you know.
Yeah. I'm actually disappointed. We had more people with their photos, not a lot, but more people on the old website had their photos than on the new website. So maybe we ought to remind people that that's possible for them to do. There were at last count, and we haven't had a lot of registrations since the last meeting, maybe 2. That there were 56 people when I did a filter search of the directory. There were 56 people who had marked their profile to not be shown. And so it's not a lot of people. And I will proceed, if everybody's in agreement, with emailing the information that I sent out to all the people that have an email. We may have, I can, as I go through and change the profile from no to yes, I can tell if they have an email address. So there may be a handful that don't have an email address, and I can ask the office to send them the same information in a letter.
Chris, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, George.
In the letter, I think it said something, if you can pull the letter up, it said something about the Florida state statutes or something. Did you?
Yes. The statutes say that unless an owner has provided their email address and specifically said they will accept email from the association, you can't show it. So giving them the option to opt out is great. I think that's the way to do it at this point. The question that I was going to ask was, do you know, Chris, what is the conversation that John Haggerty has with new folks when he asks for that information? Does he say to them, we'd like to have your address for casual communication. Is it okay to use it for that? If they say yes, we're good. But I think we need to know what his conversation is, or perhaps instruct him that going forward, he needs to use those words so that nobody can come back and say, well, you're violating the statute. Because the statute really says you have to have their permission to show their email address.
Yes, go ahead.
I think the letter shouldn't talk about Florida state statutes or any. It looks like we're getting legal with them. What we're trying to do is just provide them with the information that this is the situation. This is our directory. We're going to have your name and address posted, and if you choose, you can delete whatever you want. But I'm just a little uncomfortable with it seems kind of heavy-handed where you start talking about legal. This is our legal right or something like that. I mean, I don't think we need to do that.
Well, I will certainly mention it to John. Roger.
John wrote the letter?
No,
John?
I wrote the letter.
Oh, okay.
John's looked at it, and I discussed with him briefly the idea that people can hide their information.
Yeah, no, that's great.
But you're right, Roger. The statute, I don't agree with the statute.
It's a gray area.
It is, and I remember looking at it when we had the old website, and you're right. There's more leeway for the association with phone numbers than there is with email.
Right.
And I think it should be the other way around, quite honestly. That we should be able to show the email and then they can simply hide it. So I will bring it up with John and Maggie that if somebody comes in new, they need to explain that to them.
Well, I'm just saying, I think that the letter just should be a more of a friendly tone and informational thing, and not like, oh, these are the rules and this is what we're going to do.
I think I would tend to agree with George that the reference to the statute shouldn't be in there.
It's not necessary.
This part right here, the
Right.
Florida
Yeah.
Statutes Association may list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely take that out.
I would agree with George that I can see where somebody could interpret that as a heavy-handed way to
Yeah.
say, well, you know,
Yes.
if you don't give it to us, we're gonna sue you, or, you know, everybody has different thoughts today about legal issues. And I guess the less you talk about it, the better off we could be.
And some people, they might have said no right off the bat. They might have a policy just saying no all the time. So this way, if we're not like trying to be like Roger said, heavy-handed or anything, we're just trying to give you the information. This is what we need. This is what we'd like to accomplish, and keep it simple like that. Because I, for one, I don't answer surveys. I don't care what it's for. Most of the time, I don't do surveys because I think they're lying about what information they're trying to ascertain. So that's just me. So
No,
a lot of times I can see where a person
agree.
would just say no.
No, I agree. When I was farming, I would get phone calls from generally from a third party that was actually working for the chemical companies. And they would ask if they could do a survey. And I said, well, my time's valuable. You want to send me $50? I'll answer the survey.
Right.
Nobody ever took me up on that.
Uh-huh.
So
Roger.
go
Oh,
ahead, Lynn.
excuse me, Roger, would you repeat the official rule so we can understand where
Yeah, the
consent
statute
has to happen?
basically, the way I understand it from several of the certification classes that I've gone to, is that the statute says if you collect the email address, you must ask them if it's okay to publicize it in the directory. If they say no, then you cannot show it automatically. They have to opt in,
Mhm.
is technically what happens. And they should, every person that comes in here and buys a place or rents a place should be told that up front. We want you to opt
Yeah.
in to providing your email address so we can communicate with you. Once they do that, we're fine. But I think these folks that have totally hidden their profile, yes, we are permitted to show the profile less some particular information. So we can show their name and address, but they have the option of saying, no, I don't want you to see my phone number. And they have the option of saying, I don't want you to see my email address.
Okay.
If they do that, they're risking lack of communication. I mean, that's Chris's point in the letter, that by not providing it or by hiding it, they won't get communicated with. And I think that's a good point to make in that letter.
Mhm.
But initially, the way the statute is written, and I agree with Chris, I don't think it's written well, especially in the way that everybody wants to communicate today through email and their telephone and all that, that allowing the statute to say you have to opt in to give the condo association your email address is the wrong way to put it.
Yeah, I agree. And go
I
ahead.
just think that the directory should have every unit listed with a name. If they want to provide information, that would be great. And most people will provide the information. There's no reason not to, unless they are having a problem, they're hiding from an ex-husband or something like that. But to have 56 or 57 blanks in the directory doesn't make sense.
Right. And one of the things that happens occasionally, especially with new owners, is that they don't know what their address is. And so there are sometimes when a new owner submits a registration that we have to correct what they put in there under their Wildwood address, because sometimes they put another address from another area or another state. And so we want the address to show up properly so that, again, when you do a search of the directory by cluster or by village, you see where they live. So if we could have a motion to send this out, I would appreciate it. With deleting the Florida statute line.
So I make that motion to send it out with the deletion of the reference to the statute.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor? Could you raise your hand? Okay, thank you.
Chris,
Go
before
ahead.
you leave that one, it just occurred to me in this discussion to wonder whether there's something like a checklist or a, bullet point form that Maggie and John have to go through, or do they sort of do it because they've done it so many times they, remember what the gist of it is? Because I think we do have, the way Rogers stated this, we do have to cover that issue of people specifically giving consent.
I would assume there's a checklist, but I would have to ask John to be sure. And
thought
I'm
there
not
was
sure. I'm not
when
sure
I
that the
came in.
email issue is on the checklist. So I would guess it may not be. And so I'll bring that up with John and Maggie. Good point. One of the things that I think we've been pretty fortunate that we haven't had a lot of abuse of the email list in the directory, other than some gentleman that lives, I think, in
One of my neighbors.
Pinehurst? Yeah,
Yes.
that is a realtor that started sending things out, and we chastised him. Actually, Tammy Alborn, I think, made it very clear to him that that was inappropriate, and he hasn't continued. And he claimed, I believe, that he didn't use the directory to gather those email addresses, but I'm not sure I would believe that.
Roger,
We all seem to get an email from him.
I
Roger?
can say without qualification that he did use the directory, because I have an email address that I only use for the directory
Yeah,
for
there
this
you go.
purpose.
Yeah, I think that was probably
Roger, does he actually live here, or he just owns here?
He lives here.
He does live here. Okay.
Yes.
Because he owns another big piece of property up in northwest Bradenton.
Yes, and there was a while, he didn't live here for about a year because it took him about a year to remodel that place because it was trashed when he bought it. That was the unit that we had so much trouble with, the lady with the felon living with her. And they were hoarders. You could only have a path. I saw the place before they moved out. It was just a path you could walk through. And it had a white carpet that was black. I mean, the place was, the whole thing was, the bathrooms, the tiles were broken, the fixtures were broken. The place was in really a mess. And so he did a lot of work, and it took him about a year, but he is now living there and has been probably now for about a year.
Well, he probably got a good deal, and I'm sure the
he-
property has appreciated.
He did, and he's also the one who posted last year as the Airbnb for weekends. He also tried that, and we had to jump on him about that.
Yeah, I
Did
thought
that
he was just
stop,
flipping.
Roger?
What?
Did that stop?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it stopped as soon as John got on him.
Good.
Stopped right away. He claimed that the individuals that were in and out were relatives, but they all had different state license plates on their cars that I kept reporting. So
Not a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
it did stop.
yeah, it's the 1 week stay that was a problem, huh?
It was only the weekends, Chris.
Okay, the next item is the budget proposal. The budget committee, we made the proposal with adding some money that you suggested, Lynn, for digitizing documents. And we made a proposal of $2,500 a year for the next 3 years. And I was in the budget committee meeting. I hosted it with Zoom. And so we explained to the budget committee why we thought that was important. They agreed. And so our budget for next year is, well, as long as it's approved by the board, it will be $2,500, and we'll have some money in there for digitizing. They didn't
Which
seem to
means
have a
then we
problem.
need to start a project for that, Chris. If that does get approved,
Right,
and when we get into January, we've got to start doing something to show that we're really going to have it done.
right. I kind of got the feeling from John, we have some money in our budget for the rest of this year. We've basically spent the biggest portion of it on the website fees, and we have about 800, maybe about 750 left in this year's budget. John sort of hinted that they would kind of, because we're in the total budget is slightly behind. He just sort of suggested that maybe we don't spend the rest of it for this year, but I don't think it's an issue. I think you're right, Roger. We should start the project either late this year or early next year. And Jane has volunteered to try doing some of the documents. And and she said she can't get paid because she's Canadian and she doesn't want to make any money here. So we may start, but we may not spend any money at this point. In fact, that is the next issue is on the agenda. And I told Jane and the committee that I would start looking at software. And there were three types of software that looked like they might be appropriate. I think I put that in the minutes. The Adobe Acrobat is what I've tried to use so far. And it seems to, I'm not sure it's working the way we would want it to work. It seems to say that at the end of the OCR process, it's still an image rather than text. And so that's not going to work. I actually think, after thinking about it and looking at things, that it may be more appropriate for us to simply retype, because that way it's going to be text. And we would maybe make some sort of notation on the document that it is a retyped version of the document. That may be, when I tried to do the first page, I think it was the bylaws. I had like 50 different issues on that page that I had to try to resolve. And the copies that we have aren't very good copies. They're scanned copies. They have a lot of extraneous marks and letters that are not recognizable. And so I asked Maggie if there was a cleaner copy, and she said no, she didn't see any or find any cleaner copies of the documents.
Chris, have we gone back to the attorney's office who drew those up and who is still, our attorney and managing our documents and affairs? I mean, it seems to me that we shouldn't even be starting with a piece of paper, that, we should be starting with their, a file from them. And maybe they could even deliver to us a searchable file.
Good point. No, we haven't done that. And so I think we should. I definitely think that's true. Because they would, I'm not sure we've had this, I'm not sure how long we've had this attorney.
Well, somebody's got those records and is obligated by law to keep them, or the originals.
Right. And
so
even if we have to go back an attorney
Yeah.
previous to this one, they should have that document, those documents too. And of course, there's amendments. And so the amendments would at least One of the documents I looked at was the Articles of Incorporation, and that was dated 2011. And as far as I know, we've had the present attorney at least since then. And so we'll definitely pursue that. That's a good idea, Lynn. We'll see if the attorney's office has those documents in a clean form.
I mean, certainly by law.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know, it's not like everything's scattered all over.
right.
The
Good.
other thing is, excuse me,
No, go ahead.
I'm wondering whether there must be companies that you can hire to do this. I mean, maybe even Kinko's, you know, or whoever Kinko's is now. Your local FedEx franchise will do this. I mean, that's a standard request, it seems to me, and we shouldn't be inventing the wheel.
Right. But I thought that it would be prudent for us to ask if anybody internally would like to, any member of the association might want to do it. And like I say, Jane volunteered. And so the question is, how would, if we ask her to do it, how would we want her to do it? And at least for some of the shorter documents, and we suggested, well, Jane and I talked about this, we suggested starting with a short document, that retyping it might be easier and quicker. The only thing with that is that you have a signature page. And the signature page, you basically have to, if you would retype preceding pages, that'd be fine. But the signature page would have to be copied as an image. That would probably be the only way, unless we get original copies from the law office, to have the signature page attached. And there is, at least I think it was in the incorporation, that the signature page did have some text above the signature that needs to be included in any process that would involve retyping it. But you can, I've done this with Acrobat, you can cut out the signature, remove it or copy it from the document, and then put it back into a new document. So that process isn't all that difficult. So we would have a potentially retyped document with a image of the signature put into the bottom of it. So I think those are at least some options, but we'll definitely check the law office first.
I would think, Chris, that even if you find that the law office, either the current one or the previous one, have those original documents on a file that they could give us, they're going to be without signature, because electronic signatures haven't been around all that long. And people, probably the way they've done business with us, I would suspect, would be to send us a paper copy and get everybody to sign it, and then register or file that copy with the county with the real signature on it. So signatures, I think, are going to have to be exactly what you just described, cut out or copied out of an existing document, pasted into a new document where everything could be searched except the signature.
Well, how many people are searching signature pages?
They shouldn't be.
No, I know. And if that's the one thing that's the drawback, I mean, so we have to squeeze it in there however it's suitable. But I don't think that should hold us up from having searchable documents.
No, it seems to me we can just do a blank document that is searchable, an unsigned document, and then add images after it of the signature pages. I mean, this doesn't have to even, you know, be a tricky thing. I mean, to pretend that we've got that page signed. Because the purpose is just to be able to search the information.
Now, here's an issue I have to bring up with the website people. I did a search of something that was in the the document that I used Acrobat for. It would be the Articles of Incorporation. And it didn't find anything in the document. But what it finds is what's in the title of the document. So it found articles, it found the word incorporation, but it didn't find a word I put in existence, because existence is in that document. It didn't find that. So I've got to find out from the website people, what's going on here? Is this not a complete search? Is it only searching the titles of the documents and not the actual contents of the documents? I thought that we've done some searches. I haven't done a lot of searches, but I thought in searches in the past, it did find content within a document. So I've got to find out how that works, how the search works. And it may be that the document I tried it on, it wasn't OCR, that the Acrobat didn't do what I thought it would do. And it may be the way that Acrobat works. But I'll find out from the website people how this search actually, it says, when you go to the search area, it says it searches the website. So I have to find out exactly how it does that, or what potential problems there might be with that. But we can go forward, and I think that we'll have to sort of take a look at certainly the association documents first, and then maybe take a look at maybe, I'm sure there are probably some other documents, minutes, things like that, that may need to be digitized as well. Okay, our next item would be a Zoom report. Gosh, I didn't finish that. I had a list of how many Zoom meetings I've hosted and for the association. And every time I do a recording, it stores the recording on my computer. And so I have a folder that has, I'm guessing, I didn't count them, but I think I have probably more than 25 meetings that we recorded. And since about last year, about this time is when we started using Zoom. And so, and I wasn't recording meetings for a while. So my rough guess is that we probably Zoomed 30 to 35 meetings. We've been doing all the workshops and board meetings since, I believe, last October. And we're doing any committee meetings that are going forward since then. And but of course there weren't as many committee meetings during the winter and spring as there are now. Lately, the committees have been meeting more often and more regularly. So the one thing that I have, I still have a bit of an issue with, and that is that at this point, I'm the only one that can start a Zoom meeting. Once I'm in a Zoom meeting, I can make somebody else a co-host. But when I tried to make John or Sue Downs there's another name for it. I think they call it an associate host or assistant. I don't know. There's another word for it in Zoom. I couldn't, and I'm not sure. It looks to me like the criteria is that they have to have a Zoom account. And
Sure.
yeah, and if they don't have a Zoom account, I can't make them an associate host, and they could start the meeting. So at this point, I still have to start the meetings, but then I can make somebody like John a co-host, and then he can let people in, and and I believe he can end the meeting. So we'll keep exploring that because at some point, I think I've only had one meeting when I was coming back from Ohio in August where I had to start it on the road. Which you can do, you can put Zoom on your phone, and I can start a meeting from the phone. So I did that once, but in general, it would be convenient if somebody else could, that I don't have to host every meeting, I guess is what I'm saying. George, go ahead.
How many co-hosts can be on this account,
Well, co-host, I think,
or whatever they call it?
yeah.
Can every committee chair host a meeting on this account?
Well, if they have a Zoom account.
Right.
And I'm not sure, what I haven't gotten, the Zoom information on this is a little confusing. I'm not sure it can be a free account. So I think it might have to be a paid account.
Don't we pay for this account?
We pay for this account, but in order for me to add somebody as an associate host, I think they have to have a paid account.
Is this still your account?
No, this is the
Wildwood
association.
Springs. Okay.
Yeah, this is the association's account. And I'm not sure that if somebody like John uses our login information, which is, I made up a Gmail account that is Wildwood Springs 390 at gmail.com, because you need an email address to as a username.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure that John couldn't go in, set up a meeting, and then be the host, but we haven't tried that.
Yeah, I would think that would work. Use that account. I don't think the Zoom cares what device you're starting it from.
And I'm not sure, you're right. I don't think it does, and I don't think they would know who I am versus who John is.
Oh, okay. So as long as they use that ID.
As long as John would log in with the Zoom account, I think he could probably start a meeting. I'm pretty sure he could.
I think so.
So we can do that. We can work on that. But in general, I think the Zoom meetings have worked pretty well. What do you guys think?
I've been using it all along. So, I mean, I know there's still 3 board members that refuse to use it or don't want it to be part of the meetings. At least the president now is accepting it, so that's helpful. But
that was a major change.
But one of the members is a chair of a committee. So that person won't Zoom. But their reason for not is they're worried about some kind of hacking. But if they're using Wildwood Springs account, what are they worried about?
Yeah, I'm not sure. And I really am glad that we have eliminated the conference call line for some users and Zoom for other users, because I was in a real quandary with that. I had to keep my phone near the speakers, so and the microphone, so that people on the conference call could hear the people on Zoom, and a lot of times they couldn't. And then I had to try to, when somebody talked on the phone, I had to tell the
Right.
Zoom. So it was a pain.
So we're not using that conference call number anymore, right? We call the Zoom number if you want to call it.
Right.
Okay. So are we still giving them $5 a month or something?
Well, we haven't given them any money.
Oh, okay.
It's actually the title of their website is free conference call.
Right.
And so the only money that we were going to give them was sort of a free will donation, and I haven't done that. I haven't processed that with the office yet. So we did agree to give them $94, and
right.
so but we haven't used them as far as I know. Now, it's possible, I think actually John may have used it a time or two since the spring, but it isn't being used on any regular basis. And it looks like Free Conference Call is upgrading to have a video as part of their service. And so it looks like they're finding that they're missing out by just having a conference call. Other than that, I would say that the other issue that comes up with Zoom is that the people that do call in, and we've tried to explain this to people, they aren't muted when they call in, and we sometimes get some feedback, or we get some extraneous noise, and whenever the extraneous noise shows up, their call lights up. So you can kind of tell where it's coming from. And so we've tried to explain
Chris,
to
I got to
people.
step away for a minute.
Okay, Roger. We've tried to explain to people that there's a *6 on their phone that they can use to mute and unmute themselves. And there's a *9, which sort of indicates that they want to say something. It's sort of like a raise your hand thing. But in general, that seems to be less of a problem now than it was a while ago. But we are going to, we've been sort of routinely, especially if you're an owner who's not a committee member or not a member of the board, and they come into a meeting. A lot of times, especially if I hear things in their background, I'll mute them, even whether they're on the phone or on video. That way we have a better meeting. And so, and we've tried to explain to them, if they want to unmute, that's what they need to do, is hit *6.
Well, I think you've been announcing that at the beginning of each meeting, and I think that's helpful. And yeah, explain the *6 and the *9 and mute them.
Yeah.
I would just mute them.
At first,
If you went to a board meeting as a unit owner and you sat there in the audience, you'd be muted until it was your time to speak.
exactly. The issue, I don't know why, but I don't think that I can unmute them, which is a little, I wish I could, because that way, but we can tell them when they can hear us. So
At the beginning of each meeting, the people that called in, this is the deal.
I actually put the information, this wasn't thinking very straight, but I actually put the information in the chat box. Well, they can't see the chat box, so that didn't help very much.
I guess that should be an announcement that maybe, as Sue starts the meeting.
Yeah.
That you should say, all of you who have called in, press, was it #6?
#6.
Star.
Okay, she should have those instructions. Press *6 to mute your phone so we don't get any feedback. If you want to speak, then press #6 to unmute. I think that's got to be an announcement up front, and we can hope that those people do it. 9 times out of 10, the people you want to mute themselves don't do it.
Well, the other issue is that when somebody calls in, we don't know always who they are. It shows their phone number. And so, I mean, I recognize some phone numbers now that call in fairly regularly, but I don't on others. And so they call in, I see a phone number. I sometimes, I don't always do this, I probably should ask them, who are you? Identify yourself. And sometimes they don't.
And you can delete them, right? If they don't.
We can kick them out, right?
So yeah, so I think maybe that's what we should do, is say,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to ask each of you to identify yourself. I'll give you the last 4 digits. You tell me who you are. If you fail to do that, then you're going to get disconnected.
Yeah.
Now pretty much we know what Tammy's number is. We know what Debbie's number is. Those are the 2 that usually call. And Steve has been going to the office to sit with John. I don't know what Steve's issue is with Zoom, but
Yeah, he has zoomed in with video from
okay.
time to time, but not every time.
I think that when anybody goes to speak, especially people that are call-in, should announce who they are every time. Because at the board meetings, I'm listening to comments and things, and I don't know who these people are, because I don't have access to that. I'm not hosting the meeting, so I don't know who called in. They might say so when you ask them who they are when they first call, but the rest of the board doesn't know who they are when they're addressing them. So
Right.
I think,
And
if I remember correctly, the old board meetings, you used to stand up and say who you were and where you're from. I'm from Palm Tree. This is from Lakeside. This is so-and-so from, you know, instead of leaving people in the dark.
I can suggest that to Sue and any other
Yeah,
committee
Yeah.
chair that is in a Zoom meeting, that they certainly should do that. That they should ask anybody who wants to speak who they are and where they're from.
because it's happened more than once, several times. I don't know who this person is, and I don't know what they, you know, what they're getting at, because they're talking about a dog problem or something like that. Where, who, you know, like.
Right.
Maybe it'd be good protocol to get back to even with the Zoom, because sometimes you see that you can see the face and you can see a name, but you might not know who they are or where they're from. So maybe
Right.
that would be a good
Yes.
protocol to reestablish, to say, okay, yeah, you can see my name. I'm Roger Schultz. I'm in Pinehurst and I'm a director. So here's what I have to say.
I remember at the other meetings, that's exactly the way it was. Person
Right,
would stand
it
up
was.
and say who they were and where they were from.
Very reasonable. Very reasonable.
Good point to share with Susan.
Yes.
And if you share it with her, I'll reinforce it. Because
Okay.
she and I
Okay.
always
Right, right.
talk between the workshop and the board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'll bring it up with her. There was something else. Oh, we've used the same phone number and link basically since last October. And it probably isn't a bad idea to change that. I can do what's called a random link. And there are other phone numbers you could use too. But I just thought it was simpler to keep using the same one, because if somebody didn't get notified as to what the link was, they could go to an old document or an old email and find the link. But it's probably good security to change that from time to time.
What is your concern?
Just that gets out there to somebody who's not a resident. Somehow.
Then we change it.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good idea that they use the same number and ID and everything, because this way you don't have to have it in front of you. You could call in and just punch in the number if you had to, if you're on the road, let's say.
Right.
Or then it would require them every time they type up to put on the mailbox. They'd have to know what's the new number, what's the, you know.
Yeah.
If there's I could see if we start having some kind of situation where there's intruders or something, then we've changed the number. But I think it's a good idea to have the same number and same ID. That's just
Good
my
point.
thought. Unless you feel it's necessary or it's safer.
I think I've only had one incursion of somebody that came in, wouldn't identify themselves, and I just booted them out. But I think there's been only one time in what 35 meetings that's happened. So it's not a problem. So we can leave it at the same with the same link for the time being, unless
Yeah,
we
because if you don't get the meeting, I can always go back to a previous meeting and just log on. I could just keep that generic one on my screen.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. That's about all I have, unless there's some other items.
Actually,
Anybody?
I have
Oh.
another item.
Okay, sure.
Do we still all have assignments to keep current different menus? I haven't been keeping up, but
Me either.
No, no,
Me either.
well, I recommend we start, remind everybody and get this going.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. We did have the various areas of the website where we sort of assigned to everybody, and let me revisit that, and I'll get an email out for people to take a look at. Jane has probably been the one person that has she reminded me not long ago that there were things, and you have too, Lynn, things on the announcement area that needed to come off. And she also expressed how valuable it was, and I appreciate this from you, Lynn, how valuable it was for the information about Elsa to be on the website about the hurricane. And, you know, for all those Canadians who can't easily get across the border these days, she was very, she said that information was very helpful. And she, we had it in, I think, both the announcements, and I had it on the homepage.
Yeah.
And she reminded me at the last meeting that it was still on the homepage, and so I took it off. So still have to sort of get together with Maggie. She has been putting some announcements up, but she puts them at the bottom because that's the easiest place for her to put them. And I have to try to get together with her and show her how to put them at the top. And so, and it's probably time that we took, I guess, some of the information about the COVID that we have in the top. Take a look at whether some of that is not relevant anymore of the announcement page.
I just looked at the COVID thing today, and I think it's very good the way you have it linked to the pharmacy's own websites and the county's own websites. So, you know, that automatically stays updated. I would suggest adding a link to the county's testing site.
Okay.
I don't know why we've never had that, but
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
it's an issue again, so.
Yeah, I'm not even, I guess I wasn't aware that they had a separate site for testing.
Yeah, they have a page and there's a walk-in site, so it's
Okay.
very useful, yeah.
Okay.
Another thing I noticed about the, excuse me, the announcements page is that there's no format to it. It's kind of a free-for-all how how each one looks. And I don't know what we can do to get past that, but it for the reader, it makes you overlook some things.
Uh-huh.
Like Maggie's formatting of the paving thing.
Yeah.
Is just,
It's
and
sort of,
it doesn't call attention to itself, you know, with the title and so on. So I don't know what we can do, but
yeah, I'm not sure either. I know Catherine used to like to use all kinds of colors and different things on the announcement page. But yeah, we could maybe come up with some guidelines. We did at one time, I believe, recommend what kind of type font to use on most of the things on the website. But I don't think, I'm not sure, you know, where that's at right now. I can see if I can find that document. Any other issues for the good of the cause?
Chris, did you ever get pulled in and learn what happened at the office for the board meeting when they lost everything?
It was an issue, I believe, with the router. And so they had to wait for Spectrum to come the next day
Okay,
because the computer guy, and I never remember his name. Is it Tom something?
Tom, yeah.
Yeah, because I recommended him a long time ago because he had been advertising in our old newsletter, and I know one of our neighbors had used him and they liked him and said he did a good job. And so I told the office that they'd ask me if I could come down and do something, and I go, yeah. And so I think they've been very happy with him, and he's helped, excuse me, he's helped set up Maggie's computer, and I think he helped set up the laptop, and he's been very useful. And he was actually there that day that they were having trouble at the office, and it wasn't anything he could do. It was something that I don't know whether they had to replace the router. I think they were back up the next day fairly. I don't know how soon, but I know I got some communication from John the next day.
okay. Now that Tom, is that somebody that lives here? Is that the fellow that came to some of our meetings way back and wanted to be a
No.
part of this committee, or not? Is that
I
somebody
don't
else?
think so. I don't think he lives in Water.
No, he's
Okay,
very good. I've used him.
okay.
Do you want his number, Roger? I'll email it to you. if you-
Okay, yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
Looking for some assistance, not personally, but for our church.
Yeah, he seems very competent.
Yeah.
And I think he has some experience with Apple, which I don't.
Yeah, our church is all Apple.
Yeah. And well, Lynn, you're Apple.
Mhm.
So he seems to be a valuable resource.
Good. Thank you.
Well, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. The next meeting is scheduled. Whoops. There. Is scheduled for October 29th. And that would be the last Friday of October. Somebody brought up the issue of the calendar not having other meetings on it, and I indicated to, I think I told John this, that I'd really prefer to have oops, let me turn that down. I really prefer to have Maggie do that. Catherine was pretty good at it, and I think that Maggie should put board meetings, workshops, other committee meetings on the calendar. And that way people know what's going on and when.
Yeah, the calendar used to be a lot more useful than it is now. I don't even look at it anymore because it's really, it's a waste.
Yeah, it hasn't been consistently updated.
She must have a calendar in her office that she's keeping to keep track of what's happening for John. I don't see why it shouldn't be something that she has to update.
Yeah, it's not that hard to add things. And she did add something recently. And I'm not sure why, but I approved it, and I shouldn't have to approve it. She's an administrator, so she can approve it herself.
They used to list the exterminator when they would come indoors and outdoors and, different sections, and now none of this information is on the calendar anymore, when meetings are or anything like that, so.
Yeah, I'll mention that, because I forgot that exterminator was on there too.
If they start to keep that more current, the website might get more used.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And so that's an important area for us to keep updated. And I quite honestly, one of the reasons I didn't want to do it is because sometimes a board meeting date gets changed, and I'm not aware of it. I'm not on the board anymore, so that
Not
can
just
happen,
board meetings.
and especially as we get around the holidays. So I think it's more appropriate that the office update that.
I think the other thing, Chris, and I don't know if you pressure John or you pressure Maggie, you should, on the Friday when Jeff
meeting.
goes around and delivers those packages to everybody, that thing is totally done. Maggie should be emailing that to you electronically. Every single board, the Friday before a board meeting, you should have that electronically. None of us get it. I had to beg, even on the board meeting day, I'd had to call from New York and get Maggie on the phone and said, Maggie, I don't have the package. Get it scanned to me. It's not that hard. She sticks it in that machine and it'll scan it. You know, so you should have an electronic copy if you're hosting these meetings. There's no question about that. You should get it on Friday. You shouldn't have to beg for it on Monday.
I totally agree. And I still haven't gotten the documents from the last board meeting yet. And I asked John for them.
Right.
And so
I'll pressure Sue.
yeah, and I want an electronic copy. I don't want a scanned copy. I want the original text.
You want the original from her computer where she's putting it together. Absolutely. I agree. You should get those documents directly from there, not a scanned copy.
Right.
I agree.
Roger, I remember when you requested that, you even requested it at the meeting, and I requested it also. And what they did send me was not a full package.
Right.
She sent me, there was a lot of information missing.
Yes, I got the same thing. It was a partial package.
Right.
Yep.
Yes, I agree, because I would, if I get it on Friday, I will post the manager's report and the financial report and the agenda on the website so that people can see that before the meeting. And so I sort of have to constantly remind that I need that. Now, John does send me ahead of committee meetings, he'll send me the agenda and any pertinent documents. But I don't always get the same thing for the board meeting. And so I'll definitely give them a heads up on that needs to happen. There are, I still have issues with explaining to them that I don't want a scanned copy of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that Maggie gets a file. I'm not sure she doesn't get a hard copy.
That John is creating for her?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So maybe the pressure has to be put on John, and John's.
Well, I think it does, because when I do get the documents, it's always from John.
So if he's creating all those documents, that's wasting his time. She should be doing it. So that's not good management of resources.
He certainly should be emailing her the digital copies of the document. Yep. I'm not sure that's happening.
Okay.
Okay, everybody ready to go?
Move to adjourn.
I have a golf match to watch. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.